Hi, I'm Neil Sackmary.
Hi, I'm State Trooper Sean Hagstrom with the Nevada State Police Highway Patrol Division, PEIO. Please stay tuned for the next episode of Trooper Talk.
And together, we can make a difference. Here we are live at the 360 Vegas studios with this edition of Trooper Talk. Trooper Hagstrom is here, and he brought some amazing guests. Trooper Hagstrom, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Please introduce yourself and tell us what it is that you do.
So I'm Officer Mitchell. I'm with Nevada State Police Division of Capitol Police. What we do is we're responsible for all calls to service, all state-owned or leased properties, to include the legislative offices and the governor's offices and any type of administrative state office.
And please introduce yourself and tell us what it is that you do and your special guest that you brought as well.
I'm Officer Santos. Again, I work with Officer Mitchell here, Nevada State Police, Capitol Police Division. This is K9 Sawyer. I was actually a year in with her yesterday. It was our 1-year anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
She's the only state bomb dog down here in the South. This is a new position, our second position here for Capitol Police as an explosive detection dog handler. So what we do is we do all the preventative sweeps for dignitaries. And I tell everybody this is the governor's dog because wherever he goes, I usually do all his preventative sweeps, any movements. But as of late, we've been working with our Las Vegas City Bomb Squad, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Armor on their J-Hat side of side of the house. And this is my partner. She's been my partner for a year, like I said.
Well, as soon as I came here, I kneeled down a little bit, and she came over and she kissed me.
She is.
And I will tell you that sweetness is, I mean, you can look at her and just know that, you know what I mean? And you get to work
Right
alongside, and so you see this on a daily basis.
I tell him all the time she's my favorite coworker.
Our sergeant tells us she's the best employee he has. So
That's true. Never complains, always eager to work.
yeah.
Right.
And you know what? Everywhere she goes, she's the hit. Everybody loves Sawyer. So
I'm just the
She's a
Uber
great dog.
driver. That's
Just
what I
the
tell
Uber
them.
driver.
The Uber driver. That's
yeah,
it.
That's right.
I've
And
stepped
so
back.
one of the things that I have in my store is very special to me, and it's a picture from Trooper Hagstrom, and when he was doing the canines. And, you know, so anybody that comes in, it's like front and center, and he signed it, and, you know, it's very special. And so talk to us. First of all, it's amazing that you got them to come. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, we have so many questions for them and everything like that. But thank you very much. And talk to us about, you know, where you were in your career and where you are today.
Sure. You know, I started off K9 a long time ago, almost 25 years ago, in Omaha. I had a dual-purpose dog. So what that means is that that dog will do tracking. Also, it'll do apprehension. And then on the other hand, it does narcotics. So it was like a well-rounded dog that you could do everything with it. These are more specialized dogs. Like some dogs, when I came to the Highway Patrol in early 2002, it was like 2007 or 9. I was a canine handler, and I had 2 different police service dogs that were narcotics only, and they were trained just to do narcotics work. And this is a specialized dog as an explosive detection dog, and that's all that dog works on. So this is one of my favorite loves is the canine unit.
Yeah.
I love it. You know, hopefully here in the future we'll get a few more on. And I know the public, anywhere you go, the public loves the canine units. They steal all the thunder from everybody there. So.
And so let's talk a little bit about, when you drove here today, right?
Okay.
One of the things that you said to me right before we got on set, which I was going to ask you before you got into this career, that you weren't always a police officer.
No. I started my working career actually working in the family business. My dad owned a small company here in Las Vegas that did water damage, specialized in water damage restoration. I started working for him when I was 13. So maybe a little bit early on the, I don't know, we lived in New Hampshire at that point. I don't know what the state laws are here, but for that. But
Every family business is like that, probably.
Well,
yeah.
I could legally in New Hampshire with a parental signature, you could start working at age 13, which is why I started at age 13.
Wow, that's
Excellent.
cool. Oh, that's really cool. Okay.
All the way up into for 16 years, we did water damage restoration, and then at age 30, I looked at starting to get into law enforcement. It was one of those things I was kind of like on the fence what I should do or not, and then I walked into my house one day, and my wife had a stack of applications on the dining room table, and she goes, "Here, start filling these out."
That's excellent.
Really?
So
I have a wife on board like that. To help you out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we so 2017, I went to academy with Henderson Police Department.
Okay.
I worked with them until the end of 2017. Came over to the state in 2018, beginning of 2018. Worked for parole and probation for almost 5 years.
Oh,
Worked out in Pahrump, worked here in Las Vegas, and then in 2022 came over here to Capitol Police.
And so one of the things that is very cool is that we talk all the time about the recruitment, right? Is the fact that not only people come from different careers. Oh, I got it for you. There you go. But the thing is that they can transition from other different departments. So not only from a localized police agency in the state, but one of the benefits of the Nevada State Police. Want me to get it for you? There you go. One of the benefits of the Nevada State Police is the fact of that you can transition from the parole and probation to the Capitol Police and stuff like that.
Right.
And so that's very exciting that to show everyone that from a recruitment standpoint.
Right. Yeah, they try to make it as seamless as possible to go from one division to another, but like anything, it's there's always some restrictions. A lot has to do with the needs of the division from where you're coming from. So I know for a while when I was trying to leave parole and probation, I actually had application over to go to Highway Patrol.
Okay.
To go from pre-MP to Highway Patrol. I was on that list for almost 2.5 years. But parole and probation was so short-staffed at that point that they weren't letting anybody go. So after a while, we got the new Director Tagliotti came back, and he encouraged the division chiefs to allow people to start moving around because he'd rather have officers stay within the department as opposed to leaving and go to Metro or go to Henderson or some of these other departments in Las Vegas. They pay for it to train the officers. You might as well keep them happy and allow them to move around as they need to develop their career and become more well-rounded officers in the long term.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We're glad that you're here. Thanks a lot for being here today. And now it's your turn. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, now you're in the limelight. Okay. Talk to us about yourself.
So prior to becoming a cop, I graduated high school. I wanted a break, and I tried to figure out what I wanted to do. So I saw a recruiter, and I went to the Marine Corps side. I scored high on the ASVAB, and they said, hey, go next door and go be a corpsman with the Navy. So I went into the Navy side, became a corpsman, so I came out, did boot camp, came in as a reservist, and then I was going to try to finish school, but then I got into corrections. So I was with the Department of Corrections.
Okay.
I was the CEO, Southern Desert Correctional Center, for about 2.5 years, 2013 to 2015-ish. And I figured I was just doing time with those guys, and I said, you know what? Nope, this isn't for me. I need a different career path, and I joined State Police, originally with parole and probation. I was there for about 3.5, 4 years. Briefly supervised probationers, parolees, and inmates. And then I joined the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force for a little bit, where we hunted the most dangerous game, is what I like to say, which is your fugitives.
Yeah, I watched that show.
Yeah. So I did that up until the shutdown. And then the task force kind of got dismantled just a little bit because we couldn't work. We couldn't go make any contacts with anybody. So I was just sitting there again, stagnant and not really, I guess, developing in my professional career.
Uh-huh.
So at the time, my academy buddy joined Capitol Police maybe 2 years prior. And he said, hey, man, come over, you know, get your patrol experience here, get to do a little bit of traditional police work within a certain realm. And at the time, I really didn't know what Capitol Police did. There was an enigma that went around, you know. We just sat there, messed with bums and shake doorknobs. And, you know, at first I was like, God, that's not traditional policing. But, you know what, everybody's, you know, afraid of change, but it's the only way to get better, right? Get out of your comfort zone. So I said, you know what, I put my transfer paperwork in. So I started, I think 2020. I'm not good with dates, but 2020. And I've been there since. Got her, like I said, last year. She was a work in progress. Our guys up north got their canine before me. But our Chief Litos, has always been pro officer. So he said, hey, you know what? How else can we progress as a division? How can we get Capitol Police out there and you know, get that enigma out of there? So he got us another dog down here, and you know, we did our interviews. I said, you know what, this is something that I would want to do, and a year later, here we are. So I've been in law enforcement for 9 years now, 10 years almost. So, and then I'm still in the military, so I use my background there to help us here with programs that are in the making or still in the process. But we are trying new things, and you know, in order to progress with our division.
You have a big smile on your face. I must tell you, when you talk about, like, you know, the earlier stuff, but then where you're progressing in your career. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Trooper Hagstrom, you know, he retired, and then when he came back, they said, okay, listen, part of you coming back, you have to come on this TV show once a week. And he was like, what does that mean? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, well, what does that mean? I have to go on this weekly talk show. And so the thing is that besides the friendship that we've developed, which is very, very special, you know, it's really cool because we're able to talk about the things that, you know, are very relevant to today. And so one of the things that is very relevant that we continuously talk about is the speeding, the impairment, you know, the drugs, you know, all of these type of things that we need to stop because people are losing their lives every single day because of these activities, right?
Absolutely. And one thing I want people to know with Capitol Police here is that they are certified officers throughout the state of Nevada. So they have the same arrest powers as we do as state troopers. And I don't think people realize that they actually get calls to some of these buildings, whether it's, you guys get the welfare office, sometimes they get calls, there might be a battery or assault. They make arrests. People just don't realize a lot of what these guys do. They're not out in the front lines like we are every day. So this is one of the things that we wanted to show what they do every day. And Santos, even though he doesn't know it, he's kind of famous because if you look at that top picture, you see the guy with the green glasses, the kind of looking green? That's Santos right up there with the Highway Patrol. So I just wanted to bring that up too. So he's like with our show every time, even though he's not here.
Yeah, and so you drive the one that says the Capitol Police?
No, that's
He
my
does.
vehicle.
You do, okay.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting you say that because here's my question for you. You see Capitol Police, you know, people always see police and they're like, okay, I'm just going to slow down because, you know, whatever. Like, you know, like I talk to my friends from the school police, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, they slow down and then they see school police and they're like, oh, these guys can't do anything and they just blow past them, right? So in your Capitol Police, right, people blow past you all the time, right? Because they probably think that you're not like a real police officer, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I get people pulling up next to me at red lights, rolling down their windows. Hey, aren't you a little far from Carson City? And I'm like, well, yeah, but we have.
They ask us if we're feds.
Yeah, like
Because, you know, Capitol Police. So, I mean,
I thought you're from D.C. or something like that. But
Capitol Police in a nutshell, I mean, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I try to tell everybody because I go out there with schools and, you know, talk to people, and
Yeah.
I'm a social butterfly. Okay, so
Okay.
I go out there and let them know that, hey,
Your dog represents you
yes,
Yeah.
she helps out with that. But I try to tell everybody, Capitol Police is kind of like the city marshals. Okay, but we're on the state level or the state side of things. So we're responsible for state properties, state parks, whatever, state employees, and then everything else that happens in between. So we kind of float. When we do our business checks, again, Governor Lombardo bought us this massive complex down at the McCarran Center. So there's at least, 21 some buildings over there. Anything that happens within that facility, it's us. Again, earlier I mentioned about traditional policing. That goes with, assaults, batteries, DVs, sexual assaults. Then moving over to the traffic side of the house. We can, do our traffic stops just like the troops do or the local police, but that's not our primary function. Our primary function is, again, anything state related, anything that has state of Nevada something, 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 or Nevada state something, something, something. We're responsible for that. Yeah. But other than that,
but at least you drive the silver car that people recognize.
Yes. So I mean, even then, so that one has the ghost marking.
Right. I saw it. I saw it.
No light bars.
They go past you at 120. They don't care. You know
so
what I'm saying?
you literally just see them in your rearview mirror coming, and then they just stop.
Right.
You become a pace car on the freeway.
Right.
And even then, they still try to test you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm already going 70, 75.
Right.
How much faster do you want to go?
Right.
And you know what? And they can still make the stop and enforce it. And same when you brought up about school police, because they're certified for state of Nevada too.
100%.
So if they if they saw a reckless driver that they stopped, and let's say they wanted to go further, let's say they wanted to cite them for speed, they could do that on anywhere in Clark County here. But what they can do is, let's say that person is DUI. All they have to do is contact us. They're already made the stop. They just give us the witness statement, what they had observed beforehand, and then our troopers will come out and we'll handle the rest of it for them. So they have those arrest powers and stop powers to do that as a regular police officer on the road. So, and I don't think people realize that, but I want the public to know that they do have the police powers to do that. So.
We appreciate both of you gentlemen. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, it's very interesting, because when I was coming over to the studio, I saw in the back Capitol Police, and I'm thinking, but it says Nevada State Police.
Right.
Right. So, like, people would recognize, but I can just imagine that people, like, they don't understand, and they're just like, okay, well, this is just somebody who wrote this on their car or something. Right?
Well, I've made some stops, and people are like, why don't you do a little bit out of your jurisdiction? And it's like, you see that patch on my shoulder, right? That's the state patch, right? So.
Yeah, and Neil, we're still having, we're talking about speeding. Just the other day, I had to make a stop on a reckless driver. 106. I pulled him over in a 65 over by 215 and over by almost close to Rainbow over there. So it's still happening every day. Our motors are getting together with Henderson and some other allied agencies later this month. They got a Joining Forces campaign coming up. And this month is Joining Forces from January 13th through the 31st. So that means that we're going to have separate groups. They're grant driven through the Office of Traffic Safety here in Nevada. So we'll have other agencies out there working traffic as far as speed enforcement for that month. And then they're also going to be set up in different parts of the valley to reduce speed. But that's very common for our motors, because they're always out there. And we're going to have to get the sergeant back on here and kind of go over some stuff, because they always send me a lot of their LiDAR pictures. Yeah. And you can see it, 110, 108, 106. And it's ridiculous. There's no reason to be driving that fast anywhere in the valley. So.
No, it's ridiculous. And so...
well, not just in the valley, anywhere.
Oh, well, absolutely. But I'm just saying, we see it so much in the valley where, and the reason why I say that, it's not really like our interstates where we do have them going pretty fast, but there's no reason to be doing 40 over the speed limit
anywhere
in this valley. I mean, it's crazy. So.
Well, so we're thankful to both of you for keeping everyone safe in the state and everything that you do. You know what I mean? All three of you. I know she can hear me. But
She just wants her
it's
ball.
easy.
I know.
Yeah, that's,
But here's what I'm going to tell you. So we used to just talk, and then what happened was a lot of people wanted to see things.
Right.
So we started with when Ashley Wellman was here, Trooper Wellman, and we used to show people's shoes when a death happened to
Right.
show that like
Okay.
this was somebody's
Actual
life.
person.
And so we started and we've progressed to the point that now we show different types of pictures so that people understand and so they can see. So let's get to some of these pictures.
okay, and this was last weekend. We had Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. So this is honoring all the men and women in blue that wear the badge for their sacrifice, their bravery, their commitment across the nation. So we celebrate that here in the Las Vegas Valley and throughout the whole state and the nation through that day. And this is at Vegas Golden Knights invited us out, and it was myself and Metro out here with our vehicles in front of the Toshiba Center for Law Enforcement Appreciation Day.
And you covered the wheels.
You know what? That was by the Vegas Golden Knights wanted that because they didn't want any tire markings on the pavement in front of the.
Oh, so
building.
so
we all had they had some other. You could see the Vegas Golden Knights trucks back here that for advertising. For another advertising booth, I won't say who they are because I don't want to misspeak. But you can kind of see what the signs say on there. But they also had to put tire covers on their vehicles just to
right.
make sure.
No. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. I just saw that right
Yeah,
now. That's
sure.
very interesting. So let's talk when it comes to yourself. So, what is you've done a lot of different things in your professional career, right? So tell me what it means to be able to wear, like you alluded to the fact of that when somebody would say you're out of your dress and you're like no, I'm proud to wear this, right?
Right.
Like it took me a long time to get to this point, but like I'm proud. So talk to me about specifically about your badge and your patch and what that means to you on a personal level.
So backing up a little bit there. So growing up, like I'm from a family that has eight kids in my family. I'm the end of 8. It goes 3 boys, 4 girls, then me. And growing up, my parents always instilled in us a sense of service and a sense of purpose. So as I grew up, my long-term goal, what I always wanted to do is I wanted to fly planes for the Marine Corps. That was my ultimate goal. Once I got into college, got my business degree, and started doing some other work and doing some other stuff, that never materialized. So that sense of service has always been something that I've wanted to do and had a purpose for, which is one of the reasons why my wife was really pushing me towards the law enforcement side of stuff. So when I got into law enforcement, I talked about I had basically a customer service background doing water damage restoration, and so I try to bring that almost customer service approach to a lot of the stuff I do. I look at it as a form of service to the community, as Trooper Hagstrom has spoken and kind of alluded to. Like we do a lot of stuff. Like we're not just door checkers or just security somewhere. We've handled human trafficking cases. We've done sexual assaults, sexual batteries. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we have to actually kind of bring that customer service, that softer approach to some of these investigations, and that's where I try to come from. When it comes to the badge, like I feel like it's my purpose to help protect and better the community, and that's the approach and that's my philosophy and that's what I try to do.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You're very soft spoken. And so you could see that, like, listen, can you come to my house and talk to me about this? And you'd be like, oh yeah, sure.
Easy to speak with
people.
people.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so
he can attest the fact I can bark when I need to, but, but I don't.
I think we all can. That comes as part of the job.
right?
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm liking these guys even more being a Marine.
Yeah.
The corpsmen have the toughest job because when I
Right.
was in the infantry unit, I'll tell you what, these guys did everything the Marines did and plus more. These guys were hardcore in the Marine Corps. We loved our corpsmen, so I just want to say thank you because these guys were awesome. You know what I mean? So, And you always want to have a corpsman in your group when you're going somewhere, so they can always fix you up.
We have all the good stuff.
That's
Yeah.
right. So.
And talk to us about yourself. So what is
Same
your
question?
yeah?
So I grew up in an Asian household, very strict, right? So you get B's, you get grounded. You talk to your parents wrong, you get grounded. You get things taken away. Back then we didn't have Wi-Fi, we didn't have any of that stuff. So we had, my Game Boy and all that. So of course, being an only child, I wasn't of 8. I'm an only child. I always wanted to basically, do my parents right, because I am a direct reflection of who they are as parents and who they are as individuals. So if I did anything bad, it always went back to my parents. So for me, it's kind of the same thing. I joined the military because I was kind of stuck. I didn't want to go to college, or I wanted a break. My dad's like, don't stop because you're not going to go back. He was right. So I got my associates and that was it. So, but, military, right? You're God, country, family. Okay. So, you swear to an oath to basically defend your country, foreign and domestic, right? Got out again, like I said, went to the reserve side, and again I was stuck. I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? How do I had that mindset of always, hey, what can you do better? What can you do for the community? What can you do better as a person? From my upbringing, I don't think I ever was in trouble. It was to the point where my background investigator was like, you ever had a speeding ticket? Like, what have you done? I'm like, dude, I literally went from having a freedom from my parents' strict upbringing to the military. There was nothing, to where I could have had that time to do anything bad. So again, I went to law enforcement. Unfortunately, a couple years ago, we had that whole, everybody hates cops. Don't be a cop.
Yeah, of course.
Be a cop. Somebody has to do the job, right? Be it me, be it these two guys, be it you, whoever. There's always that calling. I don't know what I would be doing now if I followed the footsteps or the path that my parents wanted me to do. I'd be just like any other Filipino kid. I'd be a dentist. I'd be a doctor. I'd be a nurse. There's too many of those, right? Everybody likes nurses, dentists, doctors, whatever it is. Make the money, whatever. For me, I live pretty comfortably, right? But I don't think I'd have that satisfaction of my day-to-day of even just affecting somebody's life, one person's life, right? Maybe that's why I did, what I learned from the correction side of the house was, yeah, they're, incarcerated, but in the end, they're still people.
Of course.
Talk to them as I always told my inmates, hey, I'm going to treat you as a human, but once you start acting like an animal, I'm going to treat you like an animal.
Right. Of course.
Firm, fair, and consistency, right?
That's what they teach you at the academy.
Right. Yeah. So from there, I saw some of my former inmates as a parole officer. And so I'm like, oh, yeah, I paroled out with you guys. Like that was my joke. Being with PNP, so being with PNP, again, it continues that whole, hey, what can I do? Like if it's one person, that was the one thing I did like about parole and probation was they were like babysitting adults. But then again, these kids or adults never had that supervision growing up, and that's how they ended up to where they were.
Of course.
So I had, guys 20, 30 years my senior calling me like, hey, I'm in this predicament. What do I do? And, I was 25 when I started as a PO. I'm like, I should be asking you these questions. Like, why are you asking me? So again, just, for me, it's being out there, changing that enigma of cops with kids. I like to go hang out with my niece and nephews at their schools and show that, hey, look, not all cops are bad. Or, hey, you're having a bad day. Why are you having a bad day? Or when we do the rare times we enforce any kind of traffic, somebody that comes up to you and just gives you lip, it's not, if I wanted to get you out of this car, I'll get you out of this car, right? But again, they're human beings. Why are you having a bad day? Like, what happened? It's only 8 o'clock in the morning. Or what did you do? Did you spill coffee on yourself? Did, the barista mess your coffee up? Now you're mad at the world? Like, what's going on? So one thing I learned as a CO, again, is your mouthpiece, right? You talk to these guys. You didn't have any of these tools that we have access to now as a patrol cop. And to me, that was a big learning curve. So I guess wearing the badge and wearing the patch represents the state, right?
Yeah.
Don't want to tarnish the state, don't want to tarnish the badge. I tell when I was a FTO, I told my trainees that, hey, your badge is cloth. Your badge is just a badge. Anybody can get a badge, right? But it's who you are behind that badge is what makes you either a better officer, better trooper, or you're just going to end up on these video websites. And
it's interesting he says that, because every time that somebody comes on here, we always learn something different.
yeah.
Right, and so a different thing that we is the behind the badge.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so
And who are these people?
right,
They're
like
regular people,
you-
just like everybody
right.
else. We
And-
just
and-
put our pants on. We put our pants on the same way as everybody else. And he has a lot of the same background. You know, him going to military like I did. And then when I got out, I went to college, started off with my associate's degree
Yeah.
too, and worked as a correction officer in a prison, medium security prison. But I'll tell you what, that was one of the best avenues before I even went into law enforcement, because I knew how to deal with people and how to speak with people.
Yep.
And you learn all the games and the tricks of the play.
Prison politics.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And once you learn that, how I got into law enforcement, one of our guys was a reserve deputy that was a correction officer at a prison, and had me go right along in the sheriff's office because it's a small town. And I'm like, they pay you to do this? This is great. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be switching my career, because like he said, when you're working in prison, you're doing time with them. The only difference is you get to go home at night.
Yep.
And the same routine, and it's a routine. I mean, because everybody's setting certain things, and there's certain times, and you got your case managers, and
They're
everybody's got to check
institutionalized.
everybody and the
Yeah.
checks, and
Yep.
and you got to get so many pat downs, to make sure the yard is running efficiently. And sometimes you'll be in working in prison, you'll have different things too, because you'll work. You'll be assigned like a tower duty, or you'll work at an entry point,
Yep.
or you work the yard, or I had to work a recreational area. So I was the only correction officer looking over 300 inmates,
Yep.
and there's a lot of stuff going on. So you had to make sure when they had the store by there that they weren't doing their payoffs in front of you. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in prison. But once you learn that and you become an officer later, you deal with some of the same people, but you know how to act and how to perform. And it made me a better person at searching people too.
For sure.
Because we always conducted searches while we were in prison. So it just made me a better officer starting the correction route. And he could tell you that's one of the best things. I'm glad I did it at the beginning,
Yeah,
because
I
it just
think-
made me a better officer.
Yeah, with the sheriff's offices around the country, because again, a lot of the guys in my units, my military unit, they're cops or law enforcement. They work in the detention officers is where they start. You can't apply to a sheriff's office and go straight to the road. And I think, being in an institution, it does benefit with just talking to people.
Well, and you learn so much.
Yeah.
I mean, and you learn when you get to talk to a lot of these people, because there's difference. There's inmates and convicts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
inmates are pretty much your short timers. They got nothing. They're the ones that are mouthy, but the convicts are doing their time. And you don't want to mess with the convicts, because
They got
they're the
nothing to
ones
lose.
that they have nothing to
Nothing to
lose.
lose,
They-
yeah.
They're there for a long time. So there's a pecking order when you get there. But the good thing is, like we've discussed already, is the learning ability, what you learn from these people when you transition to the street.
Outside, yeah.
But what I want to tell the public is this is one of the good things about Nevada State Police, not only that we're a family and we're able to work together, but we have all these different divisions that you could actually work. Nevada Highway Patrol and Parole and Probation are two largest, where a lot of people start out. But we do have like Capitol Police, State Fire Marshal, Nevada Division of Investigation, Dignitary Protection. So there's different avenues when you put your time in, and if there's openings that come up, like we've already discussed, if you want to get into that certain division, all you have to do is apply, and if they have openings, they'll take you if you go through the process.
I'm sorry.
And that's what's so great about the Nevada State Police.
I'm very distracted right now.
Oh, you're good, Dale. You're good,
As
Dale.
you can see.
You see, you got a good friend there, so that's awesome.
You know what I mean?
That's our favorite right there, Billy.
Absolutely.
So sweet. You ready? All right, we'll get to the
So,
next one.
and one thing also I want to tell the public
Tell
too
me.
is, if you always wanted to be in law enforcement but not a law enforcement officer, and you would like to work for Nevada State Police, you can go to our website. We do NevadaStatePolice.com. You can look up. We're hiring administrative assistants right now, and we also hiring dispatchers.
I mean, like these two gentlemen and yourself, very seriously.
Absolutely.
You know, it can attest to the fact of, you know, the different things that have done.
Your network here, how we're doing Trooper Talk, is bringing these different divisions in because a lot of people probably never even heard of Capitol Police.
Not
you know what I mean? Unless you've seen the vehicle.
Yeah, we're a small group here. Like our squad.
So
I tell everybody, if you get pulled over by one of us, you are very unlucky. Like you should not, you should not gamble. You should not try your luck in the slots.
That's right.
There's only 8 officers. We have our sergeant and our lieutenant down here, and then up north, there's the chief, a sergeant, and then his squad up there. So we're not big. We are expanding. You know, again, thanks to our leadership, making those progress for us. But our presence is going to be a little bit more known maybe later throughout this year. But like I tell everybody, you get pulled over by Capitol, you are unluckiest.
You did something very wrong.
You did something.
You had
100%.
1 out of 8 chances to not get pulled over by us.
And if you get pulled over in one that's marked Capitol Police, there's only 2 of those in the entire city.
So you're really unlucky.
You're really
unlucky if you get pulled over.
If they get a chance to meet you from a traffic stop, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what we got for this one.
Okay, and this was earlier.
How come your car is in everything?
You know what?
And
let me tell you why.
I think you just like to show off that.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
I take
like,
pictures.
Look, I drive the Mustang. Don't mess with me.
Yeah,
you know,
no,
I can catch you.
I take pictures of the other vehicles. The only thing is, that is like our signature thing for Nevada State Police. For since I'm the public information officer,
right,
so everywhere I go, like our big public events, we got to show it off. You know. So this was a law enforcement appreciation day last week.
Yes.
And I started off the morning going to this, and this was at Wayne Bunker Family Park over by I-11 and Craig over there.
Okay.
And we had different agents from all over. There was Henderson, Las Vegas, Metro SWAT, or the IPOF, which is the Injured Officers
Injured Police
Officers Fund, was there with their large tents and everything. And what was? Let me see what it's called. Concern something for cops. Concern officers for police officers services or whatever. They were out there and they were doing a blood drive at the same time too.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, it was very, very good, and it was a great turnout, and we had a good time, and like I said, it was a law enforcement appreciation day, so honoring all the people that wear the badge across the nation and here in the valley. So it was a great event, and we handed out a lot of stuff, Neil. There was a lot of knickknacks.
Look, I see our little hats.
Yep, absolutely.
Right?
I saved some of those. Look at
hats.
this, and then even
Ranger
adults.
Oh.
This is a retired sergeant
Look
from
at that.
Metro.
She's got your hat on.
Yeah, she's a retired sergeant from Metro from out in the Moapa area, and she came up and talked to us. She goes, Sean, can I get one of these hats? This is just the coolest thing, and it's got your Trooper Talk on there. So yeah, she had to get that, and I'm like, and her husband was also a sergeant, retired from Metro. So we got to meet a lot of people. The old Sheriff Keller was out there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so there was a lot of people out there, and it was a good event, and you can't beat K9 because K9 steals the thunder and SWAT. But we always set it up. We always get a cornhole out there, and we had kids playing, and it was just a really good time, and good to see the public out there helping us out and showing their support for law enforcement. So.
We gave away for the candy and all that type of stuff for the Halloween
and National Night Out
Yep. And so Trooper Hagstrom says, we need something to give to everybody, and we give pumpkin bags. Right,
and they actually
lit up and all that, so people can go around and you know what I mean, and all that type of stuff. Yeah. And so he says, we need, and so we looked online, and so they're not called Smokies,
right?
They're called Ranger hats.
Well, actually, but that's what they advertise that sell them.
Right.
These are campaign hats.
Right. Yes. Campaign hats.
So we ordered them, and then we put the stickers on, and everybody gets.
Oh, it was a hit at National Night Out.
I
mean, we ran out with and everybody around the whole thing. We got like 500. Everybody was running around with Trooper hats. It was kind of cool.
It's really fantastic. What I wanted to ask you was, so in the time that you have been with Nevada State Police,
Okay.
you know, we just had an anniversary of two brothers that lost their life.
Sergeant Abate and Trooper Felix.
Correct. So, talk to us about your, you know, does it make you do your job better? Do you think about this when you're, you know, driving around? You know what I mean? Like when you're in your
100%.
alone time. You know,
Yeah.
talk to us about that.
And you know, 100% when I'm on duty, I'm thinking about stuff like that. One of my extra duties that I do with Capitol Police is I teach a class called Active Assailant, and we teach it to the Nevada State employees. So I go around to like the DMV when they're doing their academies, or the welfare offices when they're doing academies, and we teach an active assailant class on what a response should be, or how to pre-plan a response in the event that you're ever in something like that. And one of the things I bring up to them all the time is when I'm driving around, and I think every officer, both of these guys probably do the exact same thing, is when I'm driving around, I'm looking at cars and I'm playing scenarios in my head. If this happens, I'm going to do that. If this guy does that, this is how I'm going to respond. And that pre-planning is what helps us to be alert and be able to be as safe as we can be out there on the road. Instances like what happened, the tragedy with Sergeant Abate and Trooper Felix, unfortunately, with that being a drunk driver that hit them, that's one of the things that it's hard to plan for. But there's things that we can do, whether it's positioning of our vehicle on a traffic stop to give us a little bit of a buffer. So if something like that happens again, they hit my car and maybe gives me 10 seconds or whatever to clear and jump and get out of the way, hopefully. Or if I'm on a traffic stop, I'm looking at you at the driver, I'm looking up, I'm keeping an eye on you in the corner of my eye, I'm looking at cars coming. That's all the stuff that we do on a daily basis, but it's something that it's easy to get into that complacent, when you're doing it for 7, 8, 9, 28 years,
Right.
it's easy to hit that complacency point. And unfortunately, a lot of times it takes those tragedies for us to kind of reset a little bit and understand that this isn't something we can take on a complacent. It's something that's got to be forefront of our mind every day. I'm going to go out to work. I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that I come home to my wife and my kids tonight.
Yeah, and when it comes to you, you not only go out and like you said when we first got here, that before anybody gets there, you go out with your dog and you make sure that everything's good. But talk to us on your behalf about Sergeant Abate and the Trooper Felix.
So Sergeant Abate was a really one of the good mentors that we've had. He did his evoc. He was responsible for all that. That was his bread and butter. Their death, very unfortunate. Couple months prior to that was Trooper Micah May's death. Like you were talking about earlier, like in the beginning of the show. It's kind of like a brotherhood, right? I'm an only child. Technically, these guys are my brothers and sisters. So I think it's harder and it hits home more when you actually go to the funerals and you see, again, behind the badge, these guys are just normal people. You see the kids, you see the family, and it's hard. So it's a risk that we take with the job. But again, like earlier, like I said, somebody's got to do the job, right? Unfortunately, there's bad guys, there's evil everywhere. We can be as vigilant, as far as pre-sweeps, during the sweep, dignitary details, protective details. Who else is going to do it if we don't sign up for it, right? Yeah. It's that cliche that it's a higher calling, sure. But do I have a wife and daughter at home? Yeah. Every day, especially when those kind of incidents happen, you just give them that hug or extra kiss or tighter hug every time you leave, because you never know. We didn't know what those two fathers had planned once they got off shift. If they were going to take their kids to school, or if they had a vacation coming up. It was before the holidays. If they had to go Christmas shopping, who knows? So it's hard. It's a something that we signed up for, just like the military. Nobody held a gun to my head and said sign it. Luckily we're not in the draft, but it's just it just takes a special person to sign up for the job and put our lives at risk. Before the public. Again, you asked us what the badge and the patch means, and I think that's what it's about. Active shooter scenarios. I do MACTAC. I'm part of the cadres. UNLV happened. What do you do? You just go out there, do what you're trained for. We had the scare after that Nashville bombing, and there was an active shooter scare at Shadow Ridge up there. Well, at the time, my kid was went to the elementary school that was pretty close. I'm not going to go and converge to where all the cops are, right? What are our softer targets? The elementary school kids, 6, 7-year-old kids that are just out there playing. So that moment in time, again, I took it upon myself to go out there with lights and sirens in the parking lot in case there was some active shooter or the guy was working with somebody else to make me the target, right? Not the kids. So.
One of the things, though, I give him a hard time that he's always out and doing his own thing with Sawyer here, and he's never around for us. But
he's never around for us.
He's never around. But
Yeah.
At the times that you need him, just a case in point, a scenario. So we have a building over next to the Sahara DMV. It's called it's an old administrative building called the Bradley Building. It's been vacant for over 10 years now. And it's actually scheduled to start getting torn down next week. But one of our duties, because it's a state-owned property, is when the homeless would break into it, we'd have to go in and clear it. Last Monday, we're in there in the building. We're partially clearing it because the contractors are in there taking air samples and stuff like that to get in prep to start tearing it down. And we go through, we clear the 2 floors we have to be on. We set up their equipment. We go back 30 minutes later, some of the equipment's missing. So there's somebody still in the building that we missed. And so he goes one way to clear one direction. I go the other way to clear another direction. And I find the guy hiding under a blanket in a corner somewhere. And as soon as I start giving commands, within seconds, he's on my butt. Mm-hmm. And, I give him a hard time. He's out doing his stuff with Sawyer, but when we need him, he is Johnny on the spot, and he responds as quickly as he can safely and be there for us. So I always say I appreciate that part of him, but it's about the only thing I appreciate.
I just want to say this, and then I want to get your thought.
Yeah.
You can tell because he was having big smiles, but you could tell when I asked and we just started talking, conversing a little bit, that it was very emotional.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Got emotional.
Because we are talking about family and these type of things that you guys are out there protecting. Mm-hmm. And I was just going to say that you look at both of these 2 gentlemen, right? And it's from the outsider standpoint, right? Because they're wearing this uniform, mm-hmm. right? They are so calm and cool and collective, but you could tell, if something happened, they're right there, and so.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a brotherhood, Neil, because you know what? These guys work together
very
closely.
Special what you see between these 2 gentlemen. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
You can tell that, if he looked around the corner, that he would understand what he's seeing. And I'm getting the chills because it's the truth.
Yeah, and you know what? They work together closely,
special.
And they know each other's tactics. You know what I mean? Because they train the same way.
Right.
And we train a lot of our DPS officers, whether they're parole and probation or highway patrol. Everybody goes through MACTAC training. He can tell you that. Yeah. And some of the best training in the country. You know what I mean? For active shooters, everything else. So when these guys work this close, not only being a brotherhood, and we've always talked about how Nevada State Police, even though it's statewide, we're really a small family. I mean, everybody takes care of everybody. And like I said, a lot of our supervisors are excellent to work with, because if we need something from them, they're right there. And if we need a certain advice or whatever, they're able to solve the problems that we're thinking about. We just want to take the initiative, because there is a chain of command, but we all work together to make sure that issue gets solved.
Yeah.
So these guys working together so closely, you can see
No, you
how
can see
they
it.
know exactly
Listen,
what they need to do.
Let me
So,
just say this to you very,
yeah.
very, very distinctly. I believe, and I tell everyone that if you believe, you can feel through the television. Now, a lot of people do believe. They might not say that they believe, but they actually do believe. And so it's very special. And you can, and I can see it from over here. Like both of you, and we've had many guests on, and it's this is one of the things that I love about the Trooper Talk, is that this is something here that you can't create. It's very special, and so we're glad that you went and made sure your family was safe. You know what I'm saying? And we're glad that you do what you do to prepare for different agencies and things like that, because it's just very important. You know what I'm saying?
And it's crucial to get that information out to the other agencies and everything too.
Oh, is this the Speedway?
Yes, it's Laps
I
for
get ki-
Charity.
I get kicked off this.
Neil, are you going to tell them what you did or not? Or we're not going to even go there because Neil's like banned from the Speedway.
I didn't
So,
know.
From the Speedway or this Laps for
No,
Charity?
from the Speedway.
Oh.
They
and
asked
that.
me
Okay.
they asked me to come out. You know what I mean? To drive my
Okay.
car around the thing. So I thought, oh, this is fantastic. You know what I mean? I had Johnny with me. Even Johnny will laugh, right? and so we were in there, and they said, go in the front. So I drove my car, and I had my Lamborghini, right? So I drove
Right.
in the front, and I had the top down, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, nobody said anything to me. Everybody comes by, and they go, what a beautiful car, this, that, and that. And I go, okay, I've never been on a racetrack in my life. Right? And so anyway, so I have all the state troopers behind me, right? And they all start putting on their lights, and I'm driving. And we go around the track, right? And I'm driving, and all of a sudden the lab car like goes in. Like, it wasn't,
Right.
it didn't it like went in. So I thought, well, I don't know. So I put my car down in second gear, and I was gone. You know what I mean? And I'm going around, and the state troopers are all behind, and I'm thinking,
Oh, boy.
I don't know, and nobody's following me. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, they had like, the pickup truck, and I'm watching, and I'm seeing like, well, something isn't right here. You know what I mean? Because like everybody else is back here, and I'm like halfway around the track. Anyway, so they at the end they had like pulled a truck in front of me, and they were like, "Listen, what are you doing? You didn't see like the black flag or whatever?" And I go, "How am I supposed to be looking at a flag? I'm driving the car." I'm like,
Right.
Anyway, to make a long story short, they said, "Okay, listen, you just need to pull your car off of the track right here and just go." And I go, "Okay." And
But
so-
how much better would that story be if they, kicked it into gear and started chasing you?
Well, yeah, yeah,
I mean, they wouldn't
that
have
would've
kept up
I
with
mean,
you,
Right.
but
That
this
would've
is a
been-
great
that-
story anyways. I mean, he's already made history at the
So
Speedway.
I've
so,
never
it's,
been. So
yeah.
to make a long story, I've never been invited back to Laps for Charity again. You know what I'm saying?
He was like
And-
officially kicked
and-
off.
And,
like,
and
yeah.
so every time I see this, I just get excited, and I go. I learned after, because when Trooper Wellman, I said, what I do. She goes, look, you're supposed to go 70 miles an hour. You drive around the track. Everybody's civil. You know what I mean? You slow down. You speed up. You know what I mean? The guy drives around. I go, I didn't know.
It's a racetrack.
It's a racetrack.
I have a fast car.
No,
Right?
but this is a
But
great charity.
but I will say this: it's for the most wonderful organization and things like this, and so we always want to highlight, because anything that when it comes to charity and things like that is one of the things that the Nevada State Police does that a lot of people don't see.
Right.
And so it's very important to highlight these type of things. So go ahead.
Yeah, we had Clark County School Police, that's Sergeant Juan right there. Everybody knows him.
Yes.
He's tremendous. And then somehow we got another person cut out of there, but we had a couple city marshals that joined us this year.
Oh, okay.
But like you said, it's a great charity. It's Speedway Charities, and it goes to benefit kids throughout the valley. So and Nevada Donor Network.
I was just going to say, do they pay for the Nevada
Absolutely.
State Police?
Yep.
Yes.
Nevada Donor Network was gracious enough to fund all of our officers. They paid up to 20 cars. We only had 10, half of it for that. but they did pay up for 20 cars to go on this track for the charities, and that was from Nevada Donor Network with Jenna Dumas, and we want to say thank you so much for all they do, because they do quite a bit.
We love the Nevada Donor Network.
Absolutely.
They're fantastic. They want nothing more than just to have a conversation. And anytime that we've had them on, they don't pressure anybody. They just want to talk. And so it's very, very important. So
absolutely,
you know what I mean? Nevada Donor Network is fantastic, and so
we like being a part of all the charities throughout the valley, and do as much as we can to let people know that we support everybody here in the valley.
Maybe one day, maybe I'll bring my truck or something next year.
Get a different car.
And they won't recognize me. You know what I'm saying? I'll just stay in the back or something like that.
I
you
love
know
it.
I mean?
You should try it, Neil.
But it's fantastic, and so anyway,
absolutely.
Funny part of the story. You know what I'm saying? And so I, just like you, have never been in trouble in my life. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so no speeding tickets, I think like one time I got like a parking ticket or something like this in my life, you know what I mean?
No.
So like anytime I see things like this, and I couldn't be an officer, right? Because I see danger and I'm going the opposite direction. But the thing is that when I see things like this, I get so freaked out. I'm like, oh my goodness, like what's gonna happen to me? And so anyway, Laps for Charity, fantastic organization.
But he does
And
watching the law enforcement shows.
We do.
Now he's watching Court TV, I think now.
Right. So now we watch. They watch the jail. Right. I can talk to you guys about anytime that we say about jail to the officers. You know what I noticed? They all look at me like I've never been in jail. So okay, you guys have never been in jail. I understand that, but because we always talk about the fact that when you go to jail, how it's not a very great place, and how you sit there and then you mouth off to somebody and oh by the way they throw you in a cell and then they'll come back and and then you mouth off again and they'll make you sit there and then you go into the cell house and so anyway. Better to leave this segment with a laugh of the charity than the jail. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You know what that means?
The end.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Full circle.
Gentlemen, let me say this to you. I appreciate both of you coming. I appreciate you showing emotion, and I appreciate you showing emotion too. And I will tell you that we take that emotion very seriously because we want people to know how passionate you are about your families, about going home to your families, and about protecting the state. You know what I mean? And so what you said about your code, about being in the military, and these type of things, I know you gentlemen take it very, very seriously. And so I will tell you that in all the episodes that we've taped, I used to drive very fast. And so I don't anymore. And part of the reason is because it's not a laughing and joking manner. Like when he goes up to a car at 106 miles an hour, it's not like, oh, you're my best friend and let me hang out with you for a moment. It's like, I don't understand, and when you're doing you're walking through to try to detect, to make sure that there's no bombs or anything, like it's not a laughing and joking thing, like, you know what I mean? And so hearing how he has your back is so special. You know what I'm saying? And so it's really one of the things that we found today. And so I'll give you final thoughts.
Well, that's final thoughts. That's always a good one.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate these type of shows. Like I'll be honest, I haven't watched your show. I don't watch the news very much. And when I do watch the news, it's usually Fox News. I'm not usually watching ABC, to be quite frank. Yeah. But I am going to go find it. I'm going to start looking it up, right? If for nothing else than just to laugh at other people sitting in my seat here.
I agree with that. And
but
they're on a sofa, so they're much more scrunched.
I appreciate three of us would have been pretty tight.
A little bit different. Yeah, absolutely.
You might have seen a little bit different brotherly love going on.
Right.
But I do appreciate the people like yourself that create this type of content to try to bring a little more humanity to the badge and help people understand that we're not the 80s and 90s law enforcement gang anymore, and that we are just out there trying to not just enforce laws, but protect and serve the general public, and that we're out there trying to help everybody, get home every day, and that I appreciate guys like you that do stuff like this. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate you coming on.
Just caveat to what Mitchell was saying. I do appreciate you guys bringing us out here. Not only getting capital out there. Again, like I said, we're a small agency, but just to show that hey, not all cops are bad. We're here. I really want to be there for the public, not just that cliche saying, "Oh, to protect and serve." Right? No, like really. Like we're out there. If you need us, flag us down. If you're having a crisis, flag us down. That's what we're here for, and just to show that, yeah, we're human beings too, and we work for the greatest department in this whole state.
Right.
Nevada State Police, baby. Let's go.
Yeah,
Look at this. You know what I'm saying? look in that camera and say that again right there.
Yeah, you did have
Is that the recruitment thing?
No, because I was about to say we're getting our recruiter here.
Let's go.
He even gasped a little bit.
I
He was
was
like,
like,
right. Like,
am I supposed to say this?
Yeah.
No, but if anybody's thinking about, actually looking into a job like this, Capitol Police, because I know that they're going to be expanding in the future here. And also, if you're looking at maybe being a state trooper for the Nevada Highway Patrol, being one of the state's finest, and also parole and probation, go to NevadaStatePolice.com. We're always currently hiring, and I think our next classes will probably be maybe about 6 or 7 months from now, because we do have a training class going through now.
and we have the recruiter coming on too.
Absolutely. We have them coming on a little bit later today. And one thing is, this will give you time to get your application in, do your physical test, written test, and polygraph and all the stuff that you have to do prior to possibly getting hired. So if you want to do it, hurry up and get on NevadaStatePolice.com, and we can start setting up those interviews and getting those packets out to you.
Also, ride-alongs. If you're not sure this is a job for you,
Yes.
we'd rather
Absolutely.
what we push out to the academies. I'd rather you find out that you don't have the heart for this job prior to you being sworn in, because then now you're making yourself a liability and your FTO and everybody else that comes to whatever aid it is, because you just realize that hey, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
So ride-alongs, hang out, come.
Yeah, it takes a special person, but I
No,
tell
it
you
does.
what,
Right.
we're looking for those people that want to serve the community and make sure that we have a great environment that we live in
Yeah.
for our families and everybody else. So yeah, check us out, and NevadaStatePolice.com, and thanks, Neil, for having us on here
Yeah,
today.
of course. I
we
love
really
that. You know what I'm
appreciate
saying?
it.
I'm telling you,
So,
everybody's gonna watch it, and we'll send you the clip, and you're gonna watch yourself, and you're gonna go, "This is very special."
hey, but
Hey,
you know what? We got to
Trooper
say a
Talk
special
.com.
thanks to
Yeah.
K9 Sawyer.
Yep.
It's
'Cause
K9 Sawyer.
she's a hit,
Look at
aren't
her.
you, babe? Yeah.
Yeah, you
she's
did
a
great.
hit.
You kissed everybody. You're doing your job. Keep doing your
That's
job,
right.
and everybody loves you.
Shed bombed me.
Yeah, I know.
All right,
So
gentlemen.
thanks again, Neil.
Yep, look right here. All right, K9 Sawyer, look at the camera.
Right here.
Look at the camera. There you go. All right, now we're going to
Everybody
wave. All right, see you later.